Do you want to know the pros and cons of living in Norfolk, Virginia? Today, I'm going to talk about all the things I love about Norfolk, but the problem with Norfolk is that there are a lot of things that I don't like. And I want to be able to give you a balanced perspective because I think if you do plan to move to Norfolk, there are some of these negatives that might be reasons for you to not move at all. And so I want to make sure you have as much information as you can before you make those decisions. But first, I'm going to talk about the pros to living in Norfolk, and then I'm going to go into the cons. First of all, let's talk about the pros to living in Norfolk. Well, number one is going to be the things to do. You've got a lot of venues, outdoor activities, stuff that if you do want to move to Norfolk, you do have a blend or a balance of outdoor, indoor stuff. For example, you've got, they call it the 7 venues of Norfolk. You've got the Attucks Theater, you've got the Wells Theater, a couple of performing arts centers, you've got the Harrison Opera House, which is a pretty nice opera house. Some comedians perform there. You've got the Harbor Park, which is where the Norfolk Tides play, the AAA baseball team. Then you've got the Chrysler Hall, which has more those upscale, like A-list performers and comedians and some music artists. And then you've got Norfolk Scope, which is similar to what you find with Chrysler Hall, but a bit more action, like stuff like the Norfolk Admirals, the minor league hockey team we have here, more performing artists, more, I got Monster Truck Jam, wrestling, the Virginia International Tattoo, the circus, a bunch of random stuff that happens in Scope. And then the 7th venue is actually open air events. So it's not just one specific event in one specific location. It's any outdoor event that's promoted by the city, and have things like races, like city races. Another thing to do is Waterside. So Waterside is kind of like the face of Norfolk, in downtown Norfolk. Waterside is on the Elizabeth River. It's on one side. You've got Town Point Park. You've got a lot of restaurants on that one side, a lot of big green space right there. And next to that is Nauticus, which is a maritime museum. And near that is where a lot of ships will dock, especially ships that will do cruises. This is a stopping spot for cruises. But then next to all that is what's called Waterside, which has restaurants and this kind of a big building with, it used to be in the 80s and 90s, like nightclubs and restaurants, and that kind of changed. Now it's more just, restaurants built in there. It's been renovated in the last like 7 to 8 years. It feels totally different now than it used to. So now it's a really nice focal point as you drive into downtown Norfolk. Not as much going on other than just the restaurants to me, but it's a nice front as you drive in. It's a nice thing to see. And there's also the Pagoda, which is right next to between Freemason over towards Town Point Park. There's an area called the Pagoda. It actually is a pagoda, an Asian like structure, which used to be a restaurant in there. It really isn't the way it used to be anymore, but there's a nice garden area you can walk through there. So there's houses, there's a green space, there's flowers all the way towards Town Point Park. It's a real nice stretch of Norfolk along the coast, which is the nightlife. If you want nightlife in anywhere in Hampton Roads, and that goes from Virginia Beach, Norfolk through Williamsburg, all through this side of Virginia, you're going to find that Norfolk has one of the best nightlives in all of the area. So looking on the map, zooming out, you'll see Norfolk, the downtown here is right near the Elizabeth River, and downtown has a lot of restaurants. Places like Bird and Baldwin, one of my favorite restaurants in all of Hampton Roads. The Grilled Cheese Bistro on Granby Street, Luce. And if you see, Granby Street is a primary nightlife location. Up and down Granby Street, you'll find plenty of action, plenty of restaurants. Anything in the evening that you talk about might be happening somewhere near Granby Street or somewhere outside of Granby Street. And it's kind of in the center, the heart of downtown Norfolk, because you can go from there down to the Waterside. You can walk through town. So if you want downtown, Norfolk, I'd say has the best options for downtown anywhere in Hampton Roads. Which leads me to another pro, which is you get the downtown lifestyle, that living. You've got condos and high-rise buildings in the downtown area. And even if you don't live in downtown, you're pretty close in some parts of town where you can get to downtown very easily. It just feels like that more of an urban, that more hip scene that you really don't find too much anywhere else in Hampton Roads. So if it's just you or your family is very small, it definitely makes it easy to be nimble in a place like Norfolk, downtown Norfolk, to where you can get in and out of downtown Norfolk in like one of your high-rise 1-2 bedroom condos, lots of flats, that type of atmosphere and lifestyle anywhere in downtown Norfolk. And you can't find that anywhere else as much in Hampton Roads, except in Norfolk. Well, next is the sports scene. So number one, I mentioned the Harbor Park where the Norfolk Tides play. We've got the Norfolk Tides AAA baseball team that is the Baltimore Orioles minor league team, which if you look on the map is down closer to downtown Norfolk. Then next to that in scope, you've got the Norfolk Admirals, which is the minor league hockey team that plays. Those two are big, but also the other big one that has become big even in the last 10, 15 years is the Old Dominion Monarchs, where they have grown their football team to where it's probably the nicest, best college football or sports atmosphere that we have in Hampton Roads is in Norfolk, and it's over towards Hampton Boulevard next to Old Dominion University, right? It's SB Ballard Stadium, so you can tailgate there. It's the nicest football flavor feel that you get anywhere in Hampton Roads in the south part of Virginia at all. So if you do want that sports vibe, you have that in different sports. The next is the culture of Norfolk. Norfolk has more culture, I'd say, than almost anywhere really close by to Norfolk. It's got a lot of arts options. Like I mentioned, the Addicts Theater. You've got the Wells Theater. You got lots of ballets and plays and performances, smaller type stuff. Harrison Opera House, I mentioned, has real nice opera, other performing artists. And other places like the Generic Theater. You got the Hurrah Players, Push Comedy, the Governor's School for the Arts also is in Norfolk. The Virginia Arts Festival, the Virginia Stage Company. You got the Virginia Symphony. Not to mention, next to the Harrison Opera House, you got the Chrysler Museum of Art. But near there, there is the area called the Neon District. Well, zooming in, this was just an old part of town that has been revitalized. You got more art centers there. You've got more restaurants in the area in the Neon District. It's got more of a spunky vibe. There's also going to be a nice high-rise building that will be built on the edge of the Neon District that I think will kind of make it a staple of Norfolk more than it even has been to this point. But now, going from the culture dynamic, adding to that is the actual pro of Gent itself, which Gent is an entirely different part of Norfolk than even in downtown or anywhere else in Norfolk. And I think it's one of my favorite parts of all of the Hampton Roads area, from Virginia Beach, Norfolk, anywhere through the Hampton Roads area. I love Gent a lot. Why? The house styles are amazing. Colonial, Victorian, craftsman style houses built in the 30s, the 40s, the 20s, the teens, even before 1900. Big tall ceilings, big columns, well-built houses, basements, which you can't find in too many other places in the area either. Big old trees, tree-lined streets. The foliage is real nice, even though it feels like you're kind of in a city. Park access nearby. For example, Balatot Gardens is over in Gent Square. You've got the Jeff Robertson Park, which is on the West Gent side. Even going down towards The Hague, which has some amazing architecture headed towards the Elizabeth River, where it empties out towards Brambleton Avenue, the south part down closer to downtown. This area is magnificent. One of the other pros to living in Norfolk are the restaurants. But going back up of two main roads in Gent, actually three, but let's just talk two for a second, Colley Avenue and Colonial Avenue. So you zoom out, zoom in. These two streets right here, these are kind of the heart of Gent. These two run up and down. You got restaurants on both. One of my favorite coffee shops in the area is Cafe Stella on Colonial Avenue. But then going over to Colley Avenue, there's more of the restaurants over there. You've got places like a Fairgrounds Coffee, No Frill Bar and Grill. I love No Frill. Five Boroughs is a good place for like a Mediterranean, kind of quick in and out. You want sandwiches, the 10 Top is a great spot, small little place. You want to sit down, but kind of more of like a cave feel. It's like a darker feel, but it's a nice, good food, but also some pool tables, some dart boards. The Public House I like a lot, which is on the corner of Colley Avenue and Princess Anne Road. As you go up and down Colley, you'll find a lot of restaurants. And then 21st Street goes across east to west on the top part of Gent. A lot more restaurants up there. One is, it's not like a fancy place, but I'd say my favorite sushi place. I don't eat sushi lightly. Like if I eat sushi, I'm eating a lot of it. So I like all you can eat, but it's hard to find good quality all you can eat sushi. My favorite is on 21st Street in Norfolk called Volcano Sushi. Got a nice wine bar off of Colley Avenue, which is Press 626. Good Japanese street food place called Alkaline. And right next to that is a Rajput, an Indian place I like. And if you go up and down 21st, you'll find a lot of options. And also if you're stopping before you go home, like Total Wine, it's a good place to get beer, wine, big, a lot of options. Mr. Shawarma is, I'd say, one of our favorite wrap and like Mediterranean street food places. So anywhere up and down Colonial, some in Colley, and up along 21st Street, you'll find plenty of restaurants in different ethnicities, different styles. Just pick one for your liking. I think you'll find plenty of options I think that you'll be interested in. Then as you go over towards the west side of Gent, you're going to see Chelsea. Chelsea, it feels kind of like Gent. It's a little bit more industrial, but it has a lot of cool restaurants in the corner. The Birch is one of my favorite places to get a beer. Going into that same corner, you've got Torch, which is right down the street. There's the Chelsea Bakehouse, which is right next to the Birch, which I love the idea of getting pizza at Chelsea Bakehouse, then be able to get beer over right next door at the Birch. It's a cool atmosphere. You can sit outside. In Chelsea, it's kind of tucked in the corner of Norfolk, and so it's not as hustle and bustly over there, even compared to other parts of Norfolk. And it's a very historic city. I love the history here. You'll get some varieties of different dates as to when Norfolk was actually founded. But to me, I think Norfolk was founded back in 1682 by a guy by the name of Adam Thorogood, which actually has an area in Virginia Beach next door named after him, Thorogood, the neighborhood. So we're talking almost 350 years ago. So because of that, the area is loaded with history. You'll see what's called the Cannonball Trail, which it's a self-guided tour. You can walk through places like in Freemason, which is an area near downtown Norfolk that has a bunch of cobblestone streets. So you can walk through those. They're original streets. You'll see different plaques through that trail to kind of teach you more about the history of Norfolk. So if you want some outdoor activities, it's another great thing to do, walking through some really historic parts of Norfolk, which is another part of Norfolk that I love a lot because of the history is Freemason. Freemason is right next to downtown Norfolk, which is it's right on the water. And because of these cobblestone streets, the type of row houses that you see in Freemason, they kind of remind me partly, I don't want to make it too similar to this, but Alexandria, it reminds me a little bit of Alexandria in very specific small ways. I like the fact that it's walkable. I like the fact that you've got those streets. I don't like driving across those cobblestones, but walking is obviously way more fun. Nice coffee shop called The Cure in there. You can stop by in. Omar's Carriage House was a good restaurant in Freemason, but it's a small part of town that's lined along the side of downtown Norfolk and also Town Point Park, which I mentioned earlier, which has a lot of good restaurants and events down near that downtown area. So if you want to walk through Freemason, you can park your car, walk through there. You can also walk through downtown Town Point Park. So if you've noticed, I talked a lot about these pros are all, generally speaking, in similar parts of Norfolk, because Norfolk's a big city. You look on the map, it's all through here next to Virginia Beach. But I've been talking a lot about this downtown and Gent area. Well, now we're going to talk about a pro that is the beach. Norfolk has a beach, and it's on the north side of Norfolk, going around towards Ocean View. Ocean View is a long stretch of beach that goes all the way towards right near Virginia Beach, near where you see East Beach right here, and all the way across towards the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, which is connecting from Norfolk over to Hampton. This is all Ocean View. Different parts of it will be spit on the edge there, but Ocean View is a long stretch, and on one side you got a lot of beach houses on the side, the beach side. Then crossing Ocean View Avenue, you have a bunch of smaller bungalows or older houses on that side, restaurants up and down. It's not the same type of vibe that you get in Virginia Beach, going to the ocean front and other parts of Virginia Beach, but it is a beach in Norfolk that people forget about, and they think that, well, if I'm living in Norfolk, what's the closest beach? Well, this actually can be the closest beach that you can find in Ocean View. Well, next is the houses that you find in Norfolk. I love a lot of the houses that you can see in Norfolk. So most of the areas that I like the most are either on the south side near downtown in Freemason, which, going back to the map, you'll see downtown into Freemason right here. A lot of row houses, historic parts of town. I love Freemason. I love the architecture you see in a lot of Freemason. Some of it's a little bit newer, but you'll find a lot of these are historic. And then just north of there is the Hague, Gent Square, all through Gent towards West Gent and Chelsea. Lots of houses in here built in the teens, 1920s, 1930s. The architecture is unique. It's magnificent. I love the columns. I love the high ceilings. I love the big porches. I love the tallness of a lot of the houses. I love the roof styles. I love the architecture in general. Then going further north from there is over into Larchmont, and going north from there is Lock Haven. You got Riverfront, all the areas down this south, the edge of the coast down near the Lafayette River, Larchmont, Edgewater. This whole section here I love. It's one of the, I'd say, I compare it to like living in a magazine. You got the tree-lined streets. You've got similar to what you can find in Gent, like the big porches in some cases. The houses are built in like the 1900s up into the 1960s. They're not all super historic or old, but you'll find a lot of them in those older time periods. And so you get some great views along the water, on the Lafayette River. Some awesome views. Some of the best you'll find anywhere in Hampton Roads is on the coastlines of Norfolk. Now, there's some underrated parts like Talbot Park, which is if you want like $450,000, $500,000 houses, you get some great options in Talbot Park, all up and down Granby Street. This side, River Point, Cromwell Farms. These are, I think, surprisingly, affordable for what you get. Talking $375 to $525. Along the water, you're talking $800 and up, mostly $700 and up. But you get some good options in and around Granby Street. Have I missed any pros? If I have, drop a comment below. Let me know. Let the people watching know, especially if you're from here and you've experienced this area. Let people know of other pros that I haven't mentioned that you think are worth mentioning to give people good context. Now let's do the cons. Okay, there are a lot of them. Some of them are more extreme than others. I think that there are enough things here that I think I would have pause if you do want to move to Norfolk. And I'm not saying you shouldn't necessarily, but they're worth considering because I think that because there are a lot of places in Norfolk that are amazing, you got to kind of weigh the benefits and drawbacks here. So number one is going to be the flooding. Norfolk, of all the areas close by, Norfolk to me has the highest risk for flooding in the city. And when I say flooding, I don't necessarily mean flooding into your house. That could be possible, but a lot of these areas in Norfolk, they're low-lying, especially in the western side of Norfolk. Some of the best neighborhoods I like may have some issues with flooding. Cross sections of neighborhoods, the streets can be low-lying enough to where you'll start seeing water come up off the road into your yard. You'll see some neighborhoods even like in Larchmont where some houses have been lifted and risen up off the ground because the floodplain is just too high. So you got to account for that depending on where you live in Norfolk, whether it be in Gent, in The Hague. There are some specific spots that can be real problematic there. Downtown Norfolk has some issues. Going up towards Larchmont, going up towards the northwestern side of Norfolk, going even anywhere but mostly towards water in general. However, I mentioned before that there is a part of town that has some historic neighborhoods that also don't have as much in regards to flood insurance. And it is, I mentioned Talbot Park and Cromwell Farms, the area near Granby Street. That's one of the reasons why I do think you can get the historic feel of Norfolk close to downtown, but also not as much in regards to flood insurance. And that's one thing to keep in mind is you'll find that there are parts of the area that require flood insurance. There are some parts that don't. A lot of Norfolk doesn't require flood insurance. So it really depends on your tolerance for flooding, but it's definitely a drawback, and it's gotten worse, I think, over time. Now, the next con is it's not as big as you might think. I mentioned it's got the downtown scene, got the nightlife. Well, that's great, but in relation to other cities around it, it has a lot of downtown and nightlife. But if you talk about like some of those top 10, 20, even 30, top 30 cities in all of the United States, Norfolk just doesn't hold a candle to these places. So you're talking, as far as population goes, Norfolk has like 232,000 in 2024. It's not big enough to draw everything, all the A-listers. You'll see some, like especially comedians, but not every band is going to come here. You may have to drive to D.C., Washington, D.C., maybe even to Richmond sometimes, or even towards Raleigh to get some other bigger bands. Those big, the premier A-list acts you'll find that go across the country. But you'll be teased. For example, a lot of big comedians come here. Jerry Seinfeld's come multiple times in the last few years. You know, a lot of big, Kevin Hart's coming here. A lot of other big A-listers do come. So you think, well, I'm in a big city. I'll get that big city vibe. You get a little bit of it. But just make sure you walk in with the expectation of it's not like those other big cities that I might think I'm comparing them to, like the Atlantas, the Chicagos, the New Yorks. This is not that. Make sure you get that out of your system before you make the decision to move here because of reasons like the events, the nightlife. You'll get a little bit of it, just not a lot. Which leads me to another one that's similar is the sports scene. While you have some, there are no major league professional sports teams here. So, for example, we've threatened to get a Major League Baseball team or a basketball team or a hockey team. But the problem in the area is that we're always getting considered, but it never really happens because there's just no one that has the willingness to make a push to take the chance to put money into this area to get a big sports team here. I don't think it's going to happen personally. I think it's going to take someone that will be willing to take a big risk with a lot of money, their own personal money, and they could fall flat on their face and it not work. And some of the problem too is the traffic here is a problem. The sporting scene, it exists, it's nice, but it really doesn't just make it over the top as far as really, really worth coming here for the sports. And so for me, that's one of the problems that I've found with the whole area in Norfolk is that I wish that there was a professional sports team here. I've got to go to Washington, D.C. I've got to go to Charlotte. You've got to go to those bigger cities. That's just not what Norfolk is. The next one is the traffic. This area just wasn't designed for the amount of people that came here over the last 50 to 60 years. Now, the cities, not just Norfolk, but Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, they're trying to adjust for the influx. but you can only do so much within a certain amount of time and within a certain amount of space. The problem with this traffic situation also is that Norfolk specifically is on the corner around a bunch of water. So you can only build and expand in certain ways based on what you got. And so Norfolk, it kind of is what it is from the standpoint of land size. And so based on how many people are here, based on how it has grown over time and the area around Norfolk has grown, you've gotten more people through the area, and it just there's a lot of traffic, especially in rush hour. So if you're checking for commute distances between like Norfolk downtown and other parts of Norfolk or the other parts of Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, make sure you check what time you're trying to get from one place to another. And you can do that on Google Maps, and that will affect drastically, I think, what your expectations are for traffic in Norfolk. If you look online, you start checking resources and getting people's opinions on traffic. Some of the people say this is not that bad compared to like a bigger city. The answer, I agree with that. It's not like Washington, D.C. It's not like Atlanta, these big cities that congest. The problem is in Norfolk, I think the issue, some of it is you expect it to be not as bad as it is and the exact worst times. So if you're trying to get somewhere from, in 20 minutes, it might take you 26 minutes instead because you got a couple backups, accident, something stupid. So that happens more frequently than I think people would want. And because of that, the unexpectedness of the commute makes it frustrating more than anything else, especially during rush hour. So I think that's the reason why traffic to me is the biggest problem. Next to that, though, part of the reason for traffic is that there are multiple tunnels to deal with. There are actually 3 in Norfolk connecting to different cities. There is the downtown tunnel, which connects from Norfolk to Portsmouth, which down in the south part, right on the corner near downtown Norfolk, that can back up pretty badly. Also, the Midtown Tunnel, which also connects to Portsmouth, but on the other side, which can also get you sneakily over to Suffolk pretty easily. Those two have tolls. But then the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel that goes from Norfolk up into Hampton, that's not a toll, but that one backs up so bad, and it's being rebuilt. And they're trying. This is the biggest problem with traffic in, to me, all of Norfolk and in the Hampton Roads area, is that the tunnel just gets congested all the time. But one of the problems that this tunnel has that people don't pay attention to is that the heights of the tunnels themselves are lower, and that a lot of the big trucks that try to go from one side to the other don't read the signs that as far as the maximum height your truck has to be before you start having problems. Now, what they do is they will have people that will watch trucks that come through the tunnel or towards the tunnel, and if they see a truck that is too high, they have to stop the truck, make it turn around and go back to the other tunnel that goes towards Chesapeake. And this can cause so many bad backups. So they are expanding the tunnel. This is a huge project. The Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel project is huge. Probably done like around the 2027, 28 range, but it will drastically change the landscape of traffic in the north part of Norfolk and hopefully further than that. And I think it's going to make it easier going from one side of the Hampton Newport News side of the area down to Norfolk and vice versa as we get closer to that being finished. In the same vein, another con is it is stuck in the corner. Norfolk is stuck in the corner of the south side of Hampton Roads. So if you look on the map, you're going to see this overview of the area. Well, if you look at where Norfolk is, all here, especially if you're on the western side of Norfolk, but really anywhere in Norfolk, if you don't want to go to Hampton Newport News and you're going towards Virginia Beach or towards Chesapeake, you can only go out kind of one general direction, right? And so because of that, it can lead to some bottlenecking down towards the Portsmouth tunnels, down towards going towards Virginia Beach. So it's hard to get out, and especially like in those areas I talked about that I like a lot, like Gent, you're really in the corner. And when you're in that corner, it feels like you only want to go out when you have to, because it just kind of feels so distant away from the rest of town, personally. So the further in the corner you are, the harder it might feel like to get out. And so it might take you 10, 15 minutes just to get to the interstate sometimes. And that can be frustrating. So just being easily accessible to the rest of the area can be a frustration and a con to living in Norfolk. But what else is going on in Norfolk? Well, this is where I'd say that you're going to find like a Jekyll and Hyde dynamic with Norfolk. Is that you've got parts of Norfolk that are super rich in history, super rich in awesome architecture. And then you've got a whole bunch of Norfolk that is just blah. Old buildings, small houses, not a lot of character to them, all through going close to the center of Norfolk. It's just there. If you live in Norfolk, you might live in a place that has a lot of culture, or you might live in one that you're like, just feel like I'm just in Norfolk. Not a lot to talk about. And that's what a lot of Norfolk is over and over again, these strip malls, these old buildings that just really haven't been updated too much. These old, like the neighborhoods that are just built in the 40s, 50s. It's just kind of the same thing over and over again. And so because of that, it's a large part of the area feels like that. And also on top of that, not many grocery stores. You kind of have to drive a while to get to different essential places. There just aren't as many, especially in the central part of Norfolk. So that's not a big deal necessarily in the context of things, but every 3, 4, 5 minutes longer of a drive, it just feels like you're just more in the central part of a blah part of town. And that's what a lot of Norfolk is. So just keep that in mind as a drawback to just how it feels in a lot of parts of Norfolk. That doesn't feel the same as what you might see in a lot of Norfolk, where like you see the advertisements and the faces of websites. Oh, look at great Norfolk, downtown Norfolk, Gent. It looks nice there. It doesn't look the same everywhere. And I'm not downing it just for that, but it definitely feels different. And keep that in mind. If you're planning to move to Norfolk, keep that in context and set your expectations appropriately. And another con is the general crime rates in Norfolk. It does depend on where you live. And so looking at the general blend of crime rates in a city, it's getting context of where it is, where you're talking about does make a difference. But there are drastic differences. Even if you go from one area to another right next to it, you'll find some vast differences. But the general reputation of Norfolk is that there is high crime. It leads to another one, which is the drawback is the school districts are very low ranked on places like niche.com and grayschools.org. They are some of the lowest you'll find in anywhere around Norfolk, towards Virginia Beach, anywhere in the area. And that's what can affect the demand of the area mixed with demand of houses. That's why you'll see some of the areas have some of the cheaper median sales prices in all of the area. Beyond Norfolk is relatively cheap in some spots for that reason too. So a lot of people that do want to move to Norfolk, especially if you have kids, some people do choose to go private school. There are some private schools in the area like Norfolk Academy, Norfolk Christian, Norfolk Collegiate, or some of the three the bigger ones in Norfolk. There are other ones like even in Gent, some smaller ones, Montessori schools in the area too. But even going into Virginia Beach, there's Cape Henry and other private schools nearby. But just keep that in mind that there are a lot of them in Norfolk for a reason, because there is a demand for them in Norfolk. Another drawback is that it just feels old and decayed in a lot of places. And so, as time goes by, you'll see a lot of these buildings that were 50 years old now are 60, 65. They're just showing their age. Now, I do think there are a lot of benefits and some things happening in downtown Norfolk and in Norfolk that will change the complexion of a lot of the city, but it's not across the entire city. Places like MacArthur Center Mall, it was the flagship location in downtown Norfolk in the 90s. It is now a shell of itself. It's none of the anchor stores are there like Nordstrom, Dillard's, the places like J. Crew, the Apple Store, the places that would be a reason why you go into MacArthur Center Mall. But it was the nicest mall to me in all of the Norfolk, anywhere else around in the area. But it feels like an elaborate flea market at this point, just based on the types of stores that are in there now. Just the small mom and pop places that are just there temporarily, I think, because the city now owns the mall. And that's going to be changed to probably some kind of mixed use, like park, open air area that I think is going to be a much better use of that area. But again, like you're seeing the decayedness of parts of Norfolk take place right in front of your eyes. But it's going to get better, but it's just taking some time to do that. So make sure if you come here, be ready for that process to take a little bit more time than you might want it to take. Another one is, I don't know if this would be a con or a pro, the casino. There's a Norfolk casino that's coming pretty soon. I'm guessing in the next year and a half, we'll see it happen. It's right next to the Harbor Park. And I say it in the con section because I do think there are some reasons why people don't necessarily like having a casino in the area. I'm not totally convinced that it will be a positive or negative. Now, are there any other cons that I've left out? If there are, please let me know. Drop them in the comments. I want people to see and get a good balance of what is here to what it's like living in Norfolk. So if you want to relocate to the Norfolk area or moving to Norfolk, relocating to Norfolk, or anywhere around Norfolk to Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach through Williamsburg, let me know. This is what I do. I love helping people relocate to the area. So if you have any questions, I have my contact information in the description, email, call, text, and I can help you. I can help you relocate to this area when it's time for you to move. Ask me anything you like, and I'll do whatever I can to help you relocate to the area. And I will see you on the next video.